What is up guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. Hammerstang and today we are going to do another comparison video here between two flagship killers in its own right. In the first corner over here we have one of the latest flagship killers over here, and this is the Poco F3. This is one of my favorite phones in 2021. And the other corner over here we have the OG when it comes to flagship killers, and over here we have the OnePlus Nord 2. So what we are going to do today is of course check out these phones here, the key features and specs as well, side by side with each other, and also help you to decide which one to get among these two brilliant phones over here. So yes, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Alright, so we're going to start off things over here with the prices of these phones, and I will also be including the US prices here as well. So let's start off here with the Poco F3, and for this one here, the base model with the 6 gigs RAM and 128, it starts off at 1399 ringgit Malaysia, and if you want to get the highest spec model, you can get it for 1699 ringgit Malaysia. Next up we have the OnePlus Nord 2, and this one here starts off at about 1800 ringgit Malaysia, and if you want to get the higher spec model with the 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, you can get it for 2100 Malaysia. Alright, so next up here we're going to talk about the build on both of these two phones. So yes, both of these two phones are using the same Gorilla Glass 5 on the back and on the front over here. So in terms of durability, in terms of scratch resistance, of drop resistance, they are very similar to each other. One thing to highlight though with the OnePlus Nord 2, yes, it does have a nice matte back over here, but it is a little bit slipperier compared to the Poco F3. In terms of the design, both of them do have a very nice elegant design. With the Poco F3, it's a very nice Arctic white edition over here, very clean, very simple, very minimalistic. Over here with the OnePlus Nord 2, it does look a little bit better compared to the Poco F3, not much, and of course it depends on your preference. Both of them, to be honest, using them as my daily drivers, are very nice in grip in hand, and of course in terms of weight of it is really nice. And of course in terms of just using these phones, of course with the Poco F3, it is a little bit bigger compared to the OnePlus Nord 2. Here a 6.67 inch display compared to the 6.4 you can find on the OnePlus Nord 2. Other than that, of course with the OnePlus series, you have your alert slider on the top of here, you have your power button, and of course your volume rockers, whereas over here with the Poco F3 you do have nothing on the side here, but you do have your volume rockers and of course your fingerprint scanner, and also your power button over here, which works really fast, as you can see over here. To be honest, comparing this to like a under display fingerprint scanner, I really do prefer the side fingerprint scanner over here. It just works really flawlessly even at night, no problems whatsoever with this. So next up here, let's talk about the displays on both of these two phones. So yes, both of them do have your nice AMOLED display. Of course with the OnePlus Nord 2, they call this the Fluid AMOLED display, and of course here with the F3, they call this the E4 AMOLED display. With the OnePlus Nord 2, you do have a 90Hz refresh rate panel, whereas on the Poco F3, you have a 120Hz refresh rate panel. To be honest, in terms of the smoothness, in terms of all this other stuff, they are very similar to each other. Brightness, contrasty, sharpness, deep blacks and all this other stuff, they are really very good. And of course watching content on both of these two phones have been an amazing experience over them. I didn't have any problems with it. I really enjoyed watching all my stuff here, Netflix, YouTube, or that on both of these two phones. So yes, in this department they are very close to each other. And next up here, let's talk about the stereo speakers on both of these two phones. So here with the OnePlus Nord 2, you do have your top-firing speaker on the top over here, and also a down-firing speaker on the bottom here. And for the Poco F3, you do have one on the top over here, which is a little bit different compared to the Nord 2, and one of course on the bottom here as well. So let's listen to some content and let's see which one does have the better speakers. Okay, so to be honest, in terms of speakers, both of them are really good, and of course I think with the OnePlus Nord 2 is actually louder compared to the Poco F3. But one thing I did notice a lot when I find it quite annoying with OnePlus phones is the fact that when you adjust the volume on the side, so here, they do have a sudden jump to their volume over here. So if you're watching some content and you're just playing over here, and then suddenly if you just press one button up, the jump in volume is massive, and of course it's a bit annoying, especially if you're watching some shows. It gets soft over here and you want to bump it up and it just goes up a super high level. Over here with the Poco F3, it's a little bit more balanced when it comes to the volume controls. So next up here, let's talk about the battery performance over here. In terms of size, the Poco F3 does come with a 4520 mAh battery, and of course with the Nord 2, you do have a 4500. So yes, very similar performance indeed. And to be honest, in terms of the battery performance on both of these two phones, really good. I do get a nice 6 to 7 hours of screen on time, which is really good. Of course, there is one differentiating factor over here, and that is the charging. So with the OnePlus Nord 2 over here, you are bundled with a Warp Charge 65, the latest for OnePlus, and it's able to charge up from 0 all the way to 100% in just 30 minutes. And with the Poco F3, you do have a watered down version compared to the OnePlus Nord 2. Here you are bundled with a 33 watt brick charger, so it's able to charge up from 0 all the way to 100% in just under an hour. But one thing I do like about the Poco F3 is that it does support your Qualcomm Quick Charge 3.0 compared to the OnePlus Nord 2. So what does that mean is that if you are using any other brands than the proprietary charger over here, it's still able to charge up quite fast even compared to the OnePlus Nord 2, which does struggle with the non-proprietary chargers. Next time, let's talk about the internal specs on both of these two phones, and of course both of these two phones are using different manufacturing chipsets. So here with the Poco F3, you guys know this one does come with the Snapdragon 870, and of course performance on this is really good. You can get the base model over here for 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. Next up here we have the OnePlus Nord 2, and this uses the MediaTek Dimensity 1200, the flagship chipset from MediaTek. Of course it does have also your 5G support. Of course in different regions of the world you can get the 6, 8 or 12 gigs RAM variant. Of course you can get the 128 or 256 gigs of storage model. Of course using this phone over here in terms of just gaming, in terms of just social media and all this other stuff, both of them are really good, and I've got nothing to complain. Even heating issue, no lag and all this other stuff. So both of them in terms of performance are really good. And of course if you want to see a little bit more when it comes to the video comparison and performance comparison, I will leave all the links in the description down below. Okay, so next up here I want to talk about is the software side of things. And of course with the Poco F3 you do have your 12.4.2 MIUI over here, and of course with the Nord 2 you do have your OxygenOS 11. To be honest, they are quite different from each other. Of course, OnePlus has always been known to be one of the best stock Android experience, and of course with the Xiaomi devices, they do have a lot of crazy stuff in their phones, which is really amazing. And of course using these two phones side by side, and of course using these two phones back and forth, I can say I actually do appreciate both of these two phones in terms of customization, personalization and all this other stuff. They do have almost the same amount of stuff. Of course with the Poco F3 you do have a little bit more, but of course with the OxygenOS they have added a lot of stuff with the OxygenOS 11, but it did invite a little bit more bugs than what you're used to if you're using any older OnePlus devices that's using like Android 10 and below. And of course being a OnePlus user for quite some time, using this one over here, you do kind of get to nitpick some of the bugs over here. Of course with the Poco F3 it's not free of bugs as well, you do get some stuff here and there, but of course I think over here it's a little bit more polished compared to the OnePlus Nord 2. Other than that, in terms of the software experience, I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of them. They do provide you tons and tons of features with their phones. And also one more thing to note is that with the Poco F3, it does have an official IP53 rating, something that the OnePlus Nord 2 doesn't have. Alright, so last thing over here, yes, let's talk about those cameras. So when we come to the selfie side of things, with the Poco F3 you do have a 20 megapixel f2.5 sensor, whereas on the OnePlus Nord 2 you do have a higher 32 megapixel f2.5 sensor. So now let's go on to the rear cameras over here. The Nord 2 does have a triple camera setup, starting with a 50 megapixel f1.9 main lens with OIS, an 8 megapixel f2.3 ultra wide and a 2 megapixel f2.4 monochrome sensor. With the Poco F3 over here with the metal case bumper, it does have a triple camera setup as well, a 48 megapixel f1.8 main lens, an 8 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide and a 5 megapixel f2.4 macro shooter. So now let's check out some shots taken on both of these two phones. Alright, so for shots taken with the main lens, the first thing I noticed is that the Nord 2 does have a colder tone compared to the Poco F3. When it comes to details and color, I actually do prefer it on the Nord 2. It does look sharper, and in terms of dynamic range as well, it looks better compared to the Poco F3. Even if you're taking under harsher lighting conditions, I think the Nord 2 does give you more consistent shots than the Poco F3. Going on to some ultra wide as well, the Nord 2 does have less distortion compared to the Poco F3, and it's a little bit more consistent in terms of dynamic range, color, details compared to the Poco F3. Going on to some portrait shots, I think over here it's a clear winner with the Nord 2. It does give you a very good amount of subject separation, good amount of details, and the skin color on me is not too bad compared to the Poco F3. Also going on to some selfie shots again, this is the same thing, and I think with the Nord 2 it does look better compared to the Poco F3. You do get a little bit more details and color and sharpness compared to the Poco F3 as well when you're taking selfie shots. Now let's go on to some night mode shots over here, and the first thing I noticed is that obviously here with the Nord 2 it ultimately wins compared to the Poco F3. It does give you more consistent, brighter, sharper images compared to the Poco F3, which does look very blown out, very noisy, and a bit more washed out compared to the Nord 2. Going on to some ultra wide shots, yes, the Poco F3 would look a little bit better because it's brighter, but as we can see, it's very noisy and also very grainy compared to the OnePlus Nord 2, which does give you a sharper image. So now let's go on to the rear cameras over here when it comes to video, and over here at 1080p at 30fps, both of them are really good when it comes to dynamic range, sharpness, color, and also video stabilization. There's nothing much to compare around here, both of them do a really good job. Jumping on to 1080p at 60fps, this is where the Poco F3 does become a super mess over here. It's very shaky compared to the OnePlus Nord 2, which does have OIS to help in video. Going on to 4K at 30fps, again over here, the Nord 2 is a little bit more consistent when it comes to the shadows, the dynamic range, and when it comes to the color when you're moving on from bright areas to darker areas. And going on to some selfie video over here, the Poco F3 can record up to 1080p at 60fps, while the Nord 2 can only record up to 1080p at 30fps. Both of them over here does look pretty good on me over here when I'm taking selfie video. And this is the last feature that I really do like that they do have on both phones, and this is the dual video feature, so you can actually use the front and rear camera videos over here for your vlogging sessions. So that is it with the comparison between the OnePlus Nord 2 and the Poco F3. And of course, the ultimate question is which one to get. And to be honest, it's really hard to pick one. But if I of course had to pick one in terms of just overall value, I would definitely go for the Poco F3. It just makes more sense because it is cheaper. It does provide you amazing specs, and it's still one of my favorite phones in 2021. Of course, here with the OnePlus Nord 2 with the new MediaTek Dimensity 1200, and of course with your OIS camera, of course if you want the highest end and you don't want to spend too much, here with the Nord 2 it still makes a lot of sense, and I really do like this phone a lot as well. So yes, these are just my thoughts and of course my opinion. Of course, do leave yours in the comment section down below. If you guys did enjoy this video and also want to see more of this type of videos, do click the like and smash the subscribe button down below for more videos like this in the future. Do also follow me on my social as well on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also here on YouTube at Dr. Hamstack. So that is it. This is Dr. Hamstack. Stay safe, take care, and wash those hands.